The air in the majlis hung thick and heavy, a gilded cage of hushed reverence and stifling expectations. Zara sat, a porcelain doll amidst a riot of rich tapestries and polished onyx, her inner world a tempest obscured by the serene facade she meticulously maintained. Every shimmering crystal in the Swarovski lanterns above seemed to magnify her profound isolation, each gleaming surface reflecting not just her image, but the crushing weight of her family's legacy. A delicate hand, adorned with intricate henna that felt like a cage upon her skin, instinctively smoothed the silken folds of her bespoke haute couture abaya, a garment of unparalleled beauty that did little to warm the chill that had settled deep within her. The murmurs of distant conversations, the clinking of delicate teacups, the faint scent of oud and jasmine, all these sensory details of Dubai's opulence served only to deepen her solitude, creating a stark contrast with the vibrant chaos that raged unseen behind her guarded eyes. Her gaze drifted towards a collection of handcrafted marble vases, each a silent testament to artistry and enduring tradition. Yet even their flawless beauty failed to penetrate the pervasive melancholy that clung to her like a second skin. She felt a profound weariness, a fatigue that reached beyond mere physical exhaustion, touching the very core of her being. The vibrant hues of the desert blooms arranged with meticulous care within those vases seemed to mock the muted landscape of her soul. She was a desert rose, encased in a glass dome of privilege, beautiful yet utterly confined, unable to truly blossom. The unspoken pressures of her station, the endless procession of polite smiles and empty pleasantries, formed an invisible labyrinth from which she saw no escape. A sigh, barely audible, escaped her lips, a tiny ripple in the vast ocean of her controlled composure. Her mind, a whirlwind of anxieties and unfulfilled desires, yearned for an authentic connection, a moment of genuine understanding in this world of gilded artifice. The soft glow from the lanterns overhead cast long shadows that danced across the opulent majlis, mirroring the growing shadows within her own heart. She was a prisoner of her own life, a queen on a throne of ice, longing for a touch of warmth. The weight of the unsaid, of all the aspirations and dreams she had silently sacrificed, pressed down upon her, a constant dull ache behind her ribs. Her breath hitched slightly, a small involuntary movement that spoke volumes of the silent battle she fought each moment. The grandeur of her surroundings, the rich textures, the opulent details, the very air of exclusivity, felt like a cruel mockery of her inner desolation. She was surrounded by wealth, yet starved of genuine connection. The world outside the majlis, a city of dazzling skyscrapers and endless ambition, felt impossibly distant, a place where freedom might exist, but not for her. The thought was a fleeting shadow, quickly banished by the ingrained discipline of a lifetime. Her fingers traced an invisible pattern on her knee, a subtle gesture of her unspoken turmoil. The exquisite 24K gold-plated tableware gleaming on a nearby table reflected the soft light, a symbol of the material luxury that could not fill the void within. Just then, a warm, melodic voice cut through the polished silence, its unexpected kindness a gentle tremor through her carefully constructed composure, making her finally lift her gaze. "Why are you sitting here by yourself, my dear Zara Amina?" Almost invisible against the glittering affluence, paused her sweep, the worn bristles of her broom a stark counterpoint to the polished marble of the atrium. Her gaze, usually lowered, lifted, drawn by a dissonant tension rippling through the crowd. The extravagance, the crystal, the gleam of gold, felt suddenly oppressive, a weight against her humble presence and a reminder of the chasm between her world and this one. Her rough hands tightened on the broom, a silent testament to a life far from such rarefied air. A simple chiffon headscarf, softened by washes, framed a face etched with quiet wisdom, its plainness at odds with bespoke garments and dazzling jewels. She was a silent sentinel, a shadow at the periphery, yet her eyes missed nothing, absorbing human nuance with practiced, empathetic precision. The subtle shift in the air, a collective intake of breath, signaled an unfolding drama that threatened the facade of decorum. Her attention fixed on the central figure, an elderly sheikh whose dignity now crumbled under public scrutiny. The faint scent of oud, once comforting, carried a bitter tang, mingling with the acrid note of injustice hanging heavy in the air. He stood, posture subtly bowed, Stripped of his customary stature, his vulnerability amplified by opulence meant to elevate, Amina felt a visceral clench in her gut, empathy rising. She knew the sting of being overlooked, of worth dismissed by those who wield arbitrary power. The sight of his quiet suffering resonated with her experience, stirring a dormant indignation. Hushed whispers, a symphony of curiosity and judgment, pressed in on him, each murmur chipping at his composure. The handcrafted marble vases, usually admired, now seemed to mock the imperfect reality unfolding. She watched as a cruel word, a dismissive gesture, a veiled accusation played out in the polished arena, each element designed to humiliate. The Sheikh's eyes, once bright with wisdom, now held deep sadness and weariness born of quiet battles faced by a sudden public assault on his character. The Swarovski lanterns cast a merciless light, revealing every tremor of his hands and every attempt to reclaim lost pride. The atrium's bustle, moments ago lively, felt predatory, each passerby an unwitting participant in this cruel theater. A nascent resolve stirred within Amina. This degradation would not stand as final truth. She sensed unseen threads of justice ready to be woven, a hidden tapestry of dignity beneath the veneer of superficiality. This public shaming could become a catalyst, transforming humiliation into testament of an enduring spirit and revealing truths more valuable than any palace treasure. Her quiet observation, fueled by indignation and a rooted sense of fairness, solidified into unyielding purpose, ready to emerge from the shadows and reshape the narrative, bringing light to a hidden injustice that demanded redress. The weight of unspoken truths settled between them, a silent pact of understanding in the gilded, hushed space. Zara's gaze, drawn by an invisible thread, drifted across the majlis to where the auction block stood, a polished monolith under the soft glare of directed lights. A subtle shift in the room's energy signaled the imminent start of the evening's main event. The once gentle murmur of conversations had intensified, now punctuated by sharper, more expectant tones. Attendants, moving with an almost imperceptible efficiency, began to guide the assembled guests towards the designated viewing area, their movements a choreographed ballet of anticipation. A queue, initially forming with a studied nonchalance, grew steadily, stretching from the entrance of the main hall. Each person in line, from the casually opulent to the overtly eager, carried an air of quiet determination, a shared hunger for acquisition. Among them, a figure in a striking emerald green abaya, Layla, stood out, her posture radiating an impatience that bordered on a barely contained fury. Her delicate fingers, adorned with oversized emerald rings that caught and fractured the light, tapped a restless rhythm against her elbow, a stark counterpoint to the composed elegance of the other attendees. Layla's eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the room with a predatory intensity, pausing briefly to fix on Zara before moving on. The air around Layla seemed to crackle with an unspoken ambition, a desire that was almost palpable. Zara felt a familiar prickle of unease at the sight of her, a visceral reaction to Layla's aggressive energy that always seemed to disrupt the fragile peace Zara strove to maintain. The faint scent of Layla's expensive perfume, a sharp, cloying rose, seemed to cut through the more subtle aromas of oud and jasmine, a jarring note in the harmonious symphony of the majlis. The queue, now a substantial line, represented not just a collection of individuals, but a collective force of wealth and influence, each person ready to stake their claim. A low, resonant chime echoed through the hall, signaling the final call for guests to take their places. Amina's grip on Zara's hand tightened almost imperceptibly, a silent acknowledgement of the impending shift, a subtle comfort offered in the face of the inevitable. The stage was set, the players assembled, and the hushed anticipation of the auction now thrummed with a new, more potent energy, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface of polished elegance. The weight of expectations pressed in, not just on the objects soon to be displayed, but on the silent desires of those gathered, ready to bid, to acquire, to possess. With a disdainful sweep of his gaze, Khalid dismissed the growing queue, his focus solely on the unassuming figure of Zayed. He moved with a predatory grace towards the transaction desk, the subtle shimmer of the 24K gold-plated tableware doing little to soften his harsh expression. A sneer twisted his lips as he addressed Layla, his voice carrying a deliberate, cutting edge that pierced through the Majlis's polished silence, ensuring every ear was privy to the unfolding spectacle. "Is there a problem here, Layla?" he inquired, though his tone left no doubt that he already perceived one, and its source. The question, seemingly directed at the sales associate, was an overt challenge, a public indictment aimed squarely at Zayed, designed to underscore his perceived inadequacy and shame. Khalid's eyes, cold and assessing, finally settled on Zayed, lingering on his worn thobe and the humble items in his cart, a clear message of contempt conveyed without a single word. The palpable tension in the air thickened, a suffocating blanket woven from judgment and silent apprehension. Zayed, though maintaining a stoic front, felt the weight of every judging glance, every hushed whisper, as the opulent surroundings seemed to amplify his public vulnerability. A quiet hum of anticipation, almost predatory in its nature, spread through the assembled guests, each one a silent participant in this unfolding drama. He braced himself, knowing this was only the beginning of Khalid's calculated cruelty, a prelude to a more profound humiliation. Khalid's theatrical performance intensified, his voice once a low sneer, rising with calculated clarity, echoing through the marble palace atrium to seize every guest's attention at the exclusive charity auction. He held Zayed's payment card between two fingers, a gesture of disdain, as if it were suspect rather than legitimate. "Indeed, Layla," he enunciated, turning his sharp gaze from the sales associate to Zayed, "there seems to be a rather significant issue." "Sir," he addressed Zayed, the mock politeness barely hiding contempt, "this uncommon payment method you've presented, is it truly yours? We must, of course, uphold the highest standards for our charitable endeavors, ensuring every transaction is beyond reproach." A hush fell over the connoisseurs, a collective intake of breath that made the moment a public spectacle. The air, thick with unspoken judgment and whispers, pressed on Zayed, amplifying his vulnerability. Each Swarovski lantern in the opulent hall cast an unforgiving, almost clinical light, magnifying scrutiny and making every shift in his expression visible. A flush crept up his neck, testament to humiliation, yet his gaze remained steady, refusing to drop. His eyes held quiet defiance. Though his posture slightly shrank from the attention, a defensive instinct, he retained a quiet dignity, shoulders squaring almost imperceptibly. His voice, soft but firm, cut through the tension, a simple truth in a room of artifice. "It is indeed my card," he asserted, offering no elaborate defense, merely an undeniable fact, a quiet roar against Khalid's drama. From a discreet corner, partly obscured by a towering display of handcrafted marble vases overflowing with desert blooms that seemed to wilt in the oppressive air, Amina watched with growing unease. Her eyes, usually soft with compassion learned from serving others, hardened with the bitter clarity of hardship and countless indignities endured and witnessed. She recognized the scene's chilling familiarity, the insidious dance of prejudice, and the raw sting of injustice being inflicted on Zayed, a pain she knew too well. The glittering 24K gold-plated tableware on a nearby table seemed to mock genuine human worth, its cold gleam contrasting the absent empathy. A slow internal fire ignited within her, a silent indignation against the disregard for a fellow human's dignity, fueling a resolve beneath her calm exterior. Khalid's intended shame echoed a lifetime of experiences Amina had endured, making Zayed's quiet endurance a mirror of her resilience, a bond forged in shared pain. The desert flower's hues, once comforting, seemed muted, overshadowed by the ugliness of the interaction. The elegant facade of the marble palace atrium, meant for grandeur, felt like a gilded prison trapping an innocent man in baseless suspicion. Her heart ached, a quiet pang transcending their stations, a recognition of shared humanity. She felt the weight of prejudice, knowing this was not just a disputed card, but a denial of the fundamental right to respect regardless of appearance. The scene, a microcosm of societal bias, played out under the indifferent gleam of wealth, showing how appearances could eclipse intrinsic worth. This deliberate public shaming, orchestrated with cold calculation and theatrical cruelty, stirred deep anger in Amina. Convincing her silence was no longer an option. The silence after Zayed's assertion was not acceptance, but tense anticipation, a fragile calm before an inevitable storm, a quiet defiance gathering strength. It was a pause heavy with consequence, promising further revelations in this gilded cage of judgment. The weight of Khalid's disdain hung heavy in the opulent air, a palpable force pressing down on Zayed. As the manager, his posture radiating self-importance, cast his dismissive judgment, Amina felt a familiar chill. Her own life, etched with the indelible marks of struggle, resonated deeply with the silent humiliation unfolding before her. The years of cleaning, the countless floors scrubbed, the dust motes banished from gleaming surfaces, all had calloused her hands, but also honed her perception. She knew the biting sting of being judged by outward appearance, the indignity of having her worth questioned solely on the basis of her modest station. A widow, she had navigated the treacherous currents of life, raising 3 children, each day a testament to her resilient spirit. The echoes of past struggles, of hushed whispers and averted gazes, tightened a knot of moral outrage in her chest. Khalid, now moving with a theatrical flourish, directed his words at Zayed, ordering him to clear the queue, his voice dripping with condescension. The casual cruelty of the command, issued with such nonchalant authority, amplified Zayed's embarrassment, twisting the knife of public scrutiny. Amina's grip on the mop, a simple tool that represented her honest labor, tightened further, her knuckles white. She had witnessed countless small injustices in these gilded halls, the subtle slights and overt dismissals of those deemed unimportant. But this was different. This blatant prejudice, this public shaming, ignited a fire within her that simmered beneath her calm exterior. The glistening surfaces of the marble palace atrium, usually a symbol of unattainable luxury, now seemed to mock the scene, reflecting not splendor, but the stark ugliness of human bias. She knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within her soul, that remaining silent was no longer an option. The injustice was too profound, the wound too deep to be ignored. Khalid, with a smirk of satisfaction, congratulated Layla, reinforcing his discriminatory policies regarding undesirable elements at the exclusive charity auction. Layla, though uneasy, hesitated to challenge him, fearful of reprisal. Zayed, still within earshot, overheard Khalid's dismissive and prejudiced remarks about his appearance. A profound sadness, reflected in his wise, knowing eyes, deepened. The facade of luxury hiding human flaws was more pervasive than he imagined within his own enterprise. The subtle scent of Khalid's expensive cologne, once a mark of his perceived authority, now seemed to curdle in the air, a sour note against the lingering sweetness of the desert blooms arranged in the hand-crafted marble vases. He gathered the other sales associates, including Layla, for an impromptu lesson, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush, though still easily audible to anyone truly listening. His words, sharp and laced with elitism, emphasized their quality clientele from the Riyadh financial district, painting a vivid, almost contemptuous picture of those who did not fit his narrow definition of worthy. He gestured with an imperious hand, outlining the telltale signs of what he termed dubious elements: worn clothing, a disheveled appearance, and the unforgivable sin of multiple payment attempts. Amina, having abandoned her cleaning tools a moment ago, now stood motionless, her gaze unwavering, absorbing every venomous syllable. The soft, yet revealing glow of a nearby Swarovski lantern cast a halo around her simple chiffon headscarf, illuminating the quiet storm gathering within her. The harsh, clinical light of Khalid's prejudice seemed to clash violently with the warm, golden hues she carried in her compassionate heart, a stark visual representation of the battle of values unfolding. Each word from Khalid felt like a stone dropping into the well of her patience, sending ripples of indignation outward. The sheer audacity of his pronouncements, delivered with such unshakable conviction, stirred a fury she rarely allowed to surface. She had seen this brand of contempt before, felt its sting herself, and the memory fueled a burgeoning defiance. The opulent setting, designed to celebrate beauty and exclusivity, became in that moment a stage for a far uglier display of human nature, a theater where dignity was being stripped away, brick by painstaking brick. Her hands, calloused from years of honest labor, balled into fists at her sides, a silent declaration of war against the injustice she witnessed. The very air around her seemed to thicken with her unspoken resolve, preparing to shatter the carefully constructed facade of this gilded cage. She knew, with a certainty that resonated deep in her soul, that silence was no longer an option. The air, heavy with the scent of rare orchids and cologne, shimmered around the exclusive charity auction's podium. Each clink of crystal and hushed laugh amplified the undercurrent of ambition and power plays that defined the evening. Across the polished floor, beneath crystal chandeliers, Khalid's sharp, possessive gaze settled on Layla. A slow, self-satisfied smirk played on his lips. He leaned in, his voice a low rumble, ostensibly offering congratulations, though the words carried a veiled reminder of his authority. "Layla," he began, his hand briefly on her arm, familiar and proprietorial. "Your contributions have, as always, been invaluable. It is precisely such dedication that ensures our ventures maintain their pristine reputation, free from any undesirable elements that might tarnish our collective standing." His eyes, fixed on her, flicked dismissively to the periphery. He spoke of standards and exclusivity, but the emphasis on undesirable elements was a chilling reiteration of his system, a social culling dressed as excellence. Layla's polite smile faltered. A knot tightened in her stomach. Her throat went dry. The words pricked at her conscience, echoing anxieties that haunted her nights. To challenge him in this curated display of philanthropy felt like professional suicide. Fear of swift reprisal held her voice captive even as her spirit recoiled from his casual cruelty. Her silence settled like a heavy cloak, a complicit acceptance she despised but dared not break. Unseen, yet close, Zayed lingered by a display of antique watches, ostensibly admiring the craftsmanship. Khalid's dismissals, the cutting remarks about lack of refinement, the casual critique of appearance and fitting in, carried across the polished expanse. "One must ensure," Khalid had continued, "that the perception of our enterprise remains impeccable, untainted by less polished individuals." The phrase struck Zayed like a physical blow. Outwardly composed, he felt profound sadness descend, a melancholic shroud over his usually resolute spirit. His eyes, which had seen much of the world's harsh truths, deepened. The auction's jewels and silks blurred into a single tableau of hypocrisy. The grand edifice of luxury, he thought, was a veneer concealing human flaws. The blunt prejudice confirmed a disheartening truth. The rot ran deeper than he had allowed himself to imagine, not only in society, but within the fabric of his own enterprise. The ideals he had championed now seemed tainted, leaving a bitter taste where purpose had been. The weight of that revelation pressed on him as polite applause seemed to mock his growing despair. Rooted and silent, he watched the spectacle, heart heavy with the shattering of cherished illusions, wondering how far these shadows reached within foundations he had laid. The opulent setting, meant to impress, felt suddenly like a gilded cage, ensnaring both its occupant's superficiality and his hopes for a fairer future. The chandelier's light, once brilliance, cast long, distorted shadows, revealing contours of power and prejudice beneath the veneer of charity. His gaze drifted over the elegantly dressed throng. An imperceptible sigh escaped him. The conviction settled that opulence and generosity were a shimmering veil over a pervasive moral void, threatening not only the world outside but the soul of his legacy. The truth pierced the glittering facade, leaving a lingering chill. The grand majlis, still vibrating with the aftershocks of Khalid's brazen questioning, held a collective, uneasy breath as he moved with self-satisfied poise. His Italian shoes, echoing on the marble palace atrium floor, guided him to center. With an imperious gesture, he commanded the sales associates' attention, Layla among them, for an impromptu, chilling lecture. His voice, modulated yet insidious, carried an academic elitism as he swept a hand toward the golden Riyadh skyline visible through the glass. "Our esteemed clientele," he declared, thick with condescension, "deserves nothing less than perfection in every interaction. Therefore, it is imperative that we, as purveyors of true luxury, cultivate an acute eye for distinguishing elements." He let the judgment hang, a shroud of prejudice settling over the room. He proceeded with chilling certainty to list his criteria for dubious elements: worn clothing, a disheveled appearance, the unforgivable transgression of multiple payment attempts, delivered as if universal truths rather than the projections of his bias. Amina, who had instinctively ceased her methodical cleaning, Her calloused hands, still faintly damp beside her humble bucket, stood rooted. Her gaze, usually gentle, was now unwavering, absorbing every venomous syllable. The soft glow of a nearby Swarovski lantern cast an ethereal halo around her simple chiffon headscarf, highlighting the quiet storm gathering within her. Khalid's clinical prejudice clashed violently with the warm, golden compassion at her core, a vivid tableau of human values contending against curated luxury. Each of his words landed like a deliberate hammer blow, driving the wedge of contempt deeper, and Amina's suppressed indignation surged into silent, fierce resolve. She recognized the systemic pain his speech inflicted, the casual cruelty behind a polished veneer of protocol. The magnificent surroundings, designed to celebrate beauty and exclusivity, only amplified the ugliness of his rhetoric, turning the atrium into a grand stage where dignity was being chipped away. Her calloused hands clenched at her sides, betraying the burgeoning fury, a silent declaration of the internal war now raging against blatant prejudice. The air seemed to thicken with her unspoken defiance, tension poised to shatter the gilded facade. This period of observation was closing, paving the way for a direct confrontation. She felt, deep in her soul, the immutable truth. True nobility resides not in inherited gold or silken garments, but in the compassion and integrity of spirit, a truth demanding to be voiced whatever the cost. The moment was ripe for an unexpected oasis of kindness to challenge the desert's harshness. The air, still shimmering with the unspoken promise of a new era, paused, then shifted as if a curtain had fallen on one act to reveal an earlier pivotal scene. The marble palace atrium, usually a hushed symphony of opulence, now held a different tension beneath its polished facade. Khalid, resplendent in his tailored thobe and keffiyeh, held court near a display of marble vases, his voice a smooth, venomous drone. He instructed a small group of sales associates on the subtle cues for identifying problematic customers, a thinly veiled euphemism for those he deemed unworthy. Each word was a barb, building an invisible cage of prejudice around them. Amina, whose cleaning duties often kept her on the periphery of such pronouncements, found her patience fraying. Her calloused hands, usually moving with practiced grace, clenched at her sides. A tremor began deep within her, a silent earthquake of contained fury threatening to break her composure. The injustice of his teachings, the casual cruelty in every polished syllable, ignited a protective fire she could no longer suppress. Her tired eyes, usually downcast in deference, lifted and fixed on Khalid with an intensity that belied her uniform. With a resolve born of a lifetime navigating true need, Amina stepped forward. Her voice, trembling at first, cut through the silence, a fragile but undeniable blade. "Excuse me, Sheikh Khalid," she interjected, the interruption hanging like a discordant note. The sales associates, rigid with apprehension, exchanged uneasy glances. Khalid, mid-sentence, faltered. His smooth, self-assured expression curdled into irritation. His eyes, usually sharp and condescending, narrowed with reptilian coldness. He pivoted slowly, his elegant attire seeming to swell with annoyance, his gaze sweeping over Amina's simple chiffon headscarf with dismissive contempt. "Do you truly believe you have the right to interrupt me, Amina?" he began, his sweetness making her skin crawl. "Perhaps you've forgotten your level. There are matters of business here far beyond your comprehension." His words were meant to shame, to remind her of her place. The faint scent of oud and jasmine, usually comforting, now mingled with the acrid taste of his arrogance, stinging her senses. The Swarovski lanterns overhead, moments before casting a soft glow, now burned with a harsh, revealing light, illuminating the stark contrast between their worlds. Amina, fueled by an unwavering spirit, held her ground. Her posture, though unassuming, radiated quiet strength. Her eyes, etched with hard-won wisdom, met his without flinching. A new resolve settled over her. "Have you ever known true need, Sheikh Khalid?" she asked, the question delivered with unexpected force, echoing through the atrium, cutting through his veneer and piercing the complacent calm. The question hung raw and unadorned, forcing every ear to listen, altering the gilded space and exposing the fragile emptiness within its walls. "Have you ever known true need, Sheikh Khalid?" Amina's voice, first carrying a tremor of suppressed indignation, quickly found an unshakable resonance. a clear bell tolling through the opulent quiet. It was the declaration of a resilient spirit, a desert rose forcing its bloom through arid soil. To awaken each day with the crushing choice, medicine for a fevered child or the meager sustenance that keeps hunger at bay. To be judged by the threads of your thobe, the dust on your shoes, the emptiness of your hands. To feel the searing shame of scrutiny, not for wrongdoing but for existing beyond the gilded gates of inherited privilege. Her questions, each a sharp, undeniable truth, fell like silent arrows into the heart of the marble palace atrium. The Swarovski lanterns, meant to bathe the room in splendor, seemed to cast harsher shadows beside the raw light of Amina's words. She sketched a landscape of scarcity and relentless judgment, of quiet suffering far from the polite murmurs of wealth. The guests, used to such dilemmas as abstract notions, shifted in their designer kaftans and tailored bishts, some averting their gazes, others seized by her unexpected courage. Zayed, hidden in his carefully maintained disguise, watched Amina with reverence that went beyond his anonymity. Though she spoke to Khalid, her words struck him at the core, echoing his recent trials, his self-imposed vulnerability, and a life spent tracing the invisible lines that divide people. He saw not merely a cleaner, but a formidable figure of moral courage. Her plain attire a cloak for a spirit richer than any jewel in the palace. Her gaze, fixed on Khalid, held the quiet wisdom of hardships born with dignity and a smoldering justice that could not be quelled by threats or condescension. A suffocating silence settled over the hall, heavy with unspoken truths and the weight of her inquiries, challenging the complacency of their opulence. Khalid, taken aback by the audacity of her challenge, felt a cold knot of fury tighten in his gut. His thobe, usually a summons to deference, now felt constricting. The gold trim on his keffiyeh mocked his waning authority. His composed mask cracked into a flushing, unseemly crimson, anger braided with public embarrassment. He reeled as his facade of control splintered, eyes narrowed into a calculating glint, jaw tense, a temple muscle twitching. He could not be challenged by an employee before such an audience. When his voice came, it was strained with suppressed rage, a guttural snarl meant to dominate, edged with a threat to crush her spirit. "This outrageous insubordination will not be tolerated, Amina," he hissed, each syllable a weapon. "You are dismissed, effective immediately. Gather your meager belongings and remove yourself from this establishment at once." The chilling decree, intended to restore his authority, hung in the suddenly suffocating atrium. Amina flinched almost imperceptibly at the assault on her livelihood, but did not break her gaze. Instead, a fiercer resolve ignited in her tired eyes, promising deeper defiance. The unspoken battle for human dignity was far from over. It had only just begun within these very walls. Amina's resolve, now a simmering fire in her gut, propelled her forward. The quiet indignity she had long observed, the subtle slights and overt prejudices, coalesced into a singular, undeniable force. She moved, not with the abruptness of anger, but with the steady, measured grace of a woman who had found her voice after years of forced silence. The hushed reverence of the majlis, usually a sanctuary of controlled decorum, now felt like a suffocating blanket, and she was determined to tear through it. Each step she took towards the transaction desk, where Khalid's sneering face continued its public assault on Zayed's dignity, was an act of quiet rebellion, a defiance against the unspoken rules of this opulent cage. The polished onyx floor, usually reflecting only the glittering chandeliers, now mirrored the fierce light in her eyes, a beacon of justice in the opulent expanse. Khalid, too engrossed in his performance of condescension, failed to notice her approach. His voice, still dripping with feigned concern, resonated through the atrium, drawing every gaze to Zayed, who, despite the profound humiliation, held himself with an unyielding, almost regal stillness. The collective breath of the onlookers hung suspended in the air, a mixture of morbid curiosity and polite discomfort. Amina felt a surge of protectiveness, a fierce maternal instinct to shield this man, a stranger, from the unwarranted cruelty of another. The faint scent of oud and jasmine, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to mingle with the acrid taste of injustice, a bitter perfume that stung her senses. The glitter of the 24K gold-plated tableware, once a symbol of inaccessible luxury, now seemed to mock the scene, its cold gleam highlighting the warmth and resilience emanating from Zayed, even in his vulnerable state. Her heart, hardened by a life lived on the fringes of such privilege, swelled with a profound empathy for Zayed's quiet suffering. She knew the sting of being judged by appearance, of having one's worth dismissed by those who held the keys to power and wealth. This was not merely about a payment card. It was about a fundamental assault on human dignity, a spectacle designed to belittle and exclude. The intricate patterns of the handcrafted marble vases, usually a distraction, now seemed to swirl with the unspoken stories of countless injustices, silent witnesses to the enduring human struggle for respect. The injustice was indeed too profound to remain unspoken, and in that moment, Amina knew her silence was an endorsement of Khalid's cruelty. Her hand, calloused from years of honest work, instinctively reached out, not to touch, but to brace herself, preparing to shatter the carefully constructed illusion of order and propriety that Khalid sought to maintain. The Majlis, once a stage for polite commerce, was about to become an arena for a battle of wills, a quiet but potent clash between entrenched prejudice and the unyielding force of human empathy. The air itself seemed to crackle with the impending confrontation, a tension that promised to redefine the very meaning of true wealth and worth. Amina's hand, now a steady anchor, rose with a deliberate grace that belied the fury within. Her voice, clear and resonant, sliced through the stifling silence. "Excuse me," she began, her words carrying a quiet authority that drew every guest's attention, turning their stares from Zayed to her, a humble cleaner in the opulent Majlis. Khalid, mid-smirk, faltered. His expression became a comical mask of shock and annoyance. His tailored thobe lost some of its menace, his gold-trimmed keffiyeh some luster. The polished shoes that had tapped confidently moments before stood still, rooted to the gleaming marble. Eyes that had watched Zayed's humiliation widened at this unexpected challenger. Amina stepped forward, her simple abaya contrasting with the designer garments around her. But she carried a dignity that outshone jewels and bespoke fabrics. The air, once thick with judgment, now crackled with disbelief and dawning intrigue. Zayed, braced for more condescension, looked up. In Amina's eyes he saw not pity, but a fierce, unyielding resolve that mirrored his own. A flicker of hope ignited within him. Amina's presence disrupted the order, a testament to an awakened conscience. The faint scent of oud and jasmine, once a bitter reminder of injustice, now carried an invigorating note of impending change. The 24K gold-plated tableware reflected not just wealth but the radiant inner strength emanating from her, turning material symbols into backdrops for a deeper drama. "This man," Amina continued, her voice gaining strength, each syllable bearing years of quiet observation, "is not just a customer. He is a person deserving of respect, a value often forgotten in these halls of supposed prestige." Her gaze swept the guests, challenging their silent complicity, inviting them to see beyond appearance and wealth. Unease rippled through the crowd. Some shifted, others exchanged glances, all compelled by the raw authenticity of her words. Khalid, recovering, bristled, his face contorting with anger. "And who, pray tell, are you?" he spat, venomous, trying to reclaim control. "A cleaner? Do you truly believe you have the right to interrupt such an important event?" His words aimed to shame, but Amina remained unfazed, her composure a fortress against his malice. The grandeur of the Majlis, meant to intimidate, only highlighted his smallness. Amina turned to him. Her eyes, usually soft, now held a steely glint. "I am a witness," she declared, her voice unshakable. "A witness to decency, to integrity, and to the profound injustice you are enacting." Her hand, still raised, pointed not at Zayed, but at the payment card Khalid clutched like a trophy. "And I know this card." The statement hung in the air, thick with meaning, eliciting a collective gasp. Marble vases and desert blooms seemed to lean in. The Swarovski lanterns cast a softer light on a scene richer in human drama than any auction could offer. Silence followed, heavy and expectant, all eyes on Amina as they awaited the truth that threatened to unravel Khalid's world of prejudice and privilege. Her heart pounded with the exhilaration of speaking truth to power, knowing that in this gilded cage, an unexpected act of courage could set souls free. "And I know this card," echoed through the stunned majlis, a quiet detonation that shattered Khalid's carefully constructed authority. The air, thick with questions, hung heavy as all eyes turned from the smug manager to Amina, her simple uniform striking against the opulent backdrop. Khalid, momentarily stripped of arrogance, stared at her, mouth agape, color draining as the weight of her words settled. The polished marble seemed to tilt beneath him. The gleam of 24K gold-plated tableware reflected not triumph, but dawning humiliation. A hush rippled through the onlookers, polite discomfort curdling into rapt attention at the shift. As Khalid's composure frayed, a figure stepped from the periphery with quiet strength. Zayed, his eyes usually shadowed with sadness, now shone with unyielding purpose. His simple thobe radiated dignity that eclipsed Khalid's finery. He did not speak. His presence alone backed Amina's claim, an unwavering challenge. The crowd inhaled. The faint scent of oud and jasmine that had hinted at injustice now promised retribution, a cleansing breeze through the stifling prejudice. At the transaction desk, Layla's hands trembled as Khalid's furious gaze flickered between Amina and Zayed. The silence after Amina's revelation was deafening, broken only by her own quick pulse. Khalid's earlier dismissal of undesirable elements reverberated in her mind, but Amina's quiet defiance and Zayed's steady support stirred something in her. The Swarovski lanterns sharpened the moral clarity of the moment, illuminating a stark choice. This was not merely a dispute over a card, but a battle between ingrained prejudice and integrity. The weight of that truth pressed, demanding a decision. She glanced at Zayed, patient, unassuming, respectfully kind despite his attire, and then into Amina's eyes, finding fierce, unwavering courage that matched a nascent strength within her. The moment stretched taut. The fate of the confrontation, and perhaps her own future, hung in the balance. Khalid, face a mask of rage, finally snatched a voice, a guttural snarl. "Layla!" he roared. "Call security! Immediately!" His command, meant to reclaim control, forced Layla to confront the moral chasm. Her fingers hovered over the sleek device. Marble vases, usually mute witnesses, seemed to lean in, embodying the struggle between justice and injustice. She closed her eyes briefly, drawing strength from Amina's unspoken resolve, feeling the profound weight of choice. The Majlis's gilded cage, once suffocating, became an arena for liberation where a simple act of defiance could speak loudly. When her eyes reopened, they held a newfound clarity, an unshakable conviction that signaled an irrevocable shift in the unfolding drama, promising to redefine this exclusive world. Her gaze, sharp and resolute, met Khalid's with an intensity that made him recoil, a silent rebuke more devastating than any shout. Layla's hand, steady now, moved not to the security device, but to the small microphone at the transaction desk, fingers closing around its cool metal. A subtle click, barely audible in the sudden silence of the majlis, echoed through the sound system and drew every eye to her. The shift was immediate. The crowd, moments ago passive, leaned forward as one. Khalid's jaw dropped, his face a canvas of disbelief as color drained from his expensive visage. His tailored thobe, once a symbol of authority, seemed to sag, a garment too large for his shrinking presence. The opulent room, built for discreet transactions and hushed power plays, suddenly hummed with an unexpected rebellion. "There will be no security call," Layla said, her soft voice carrying through the vast atrium with unyielding authority, silencing the last murmurs. It was a voice newly found, born of conviction and the sting of past complicity. Her eyes, still bright with that awakened spirit, swept over the guests, lingering on Zayed and then Amina in a quiet acknowledgement. The faint scent of oud and jasmine, once comforting, deepened, a rich backdrop to the unfolding drama, lending a sense of ancient justice. The 24K gold-plated tableware, which had reflected Khalid's contempt, now mirrored dawning realization in the onlookers' eyes. Khalid, sputtering, found his voice at last, a choked, desperate sound that held no command. "Layla, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" His words were swallowed by the wave of quiet determination from Layla. She ignored him, focused on the microphone, her posture radiating a strength that belied her usual compliance. The sales associates, initially frozen, began to stir. Unease, then curiosity, watching her unthinkable defiance. The handcrafted marble vases, silent sentinels of luxury, seemed to vibrate with the tension, their beauty momentarily overshadowed by the power of a single honest voice. "This card," Layla continued, her tone steely, "is not just legitimate, it is a symbol." She paused to let the weight of her words settle among those who had watched Khalid's public shaming. A collective gasp rippled through the majlis as the implications unfolded, a symbol of the true owner's generosity, compassion, and integrity. Her gaze found Zayed's. "And I can confirm unequivocally that this card belongs to Mr. Zayed. He is not just a valued customer, he is the visionary behind this entire establishment." The revelation hung in the air, shattering Khalid's world of prejudice and privilege into glittering fragments. The Swarovski lanterns, once ethereal, now shone a merciless light, exposing the gap between appearance and truth. Murmurs swelled into a buzz of shock and dawning understanding. Faces that had been impassive displayed surprise, embarrassment, indignation, and in some, admiration. Khalid, utterly undone, staggered back and crashed into a display of perfumes, sending a cascade of crystal bottles tumbling to the marble floor. The shattering punctuated the reveal, a final, emphatic end to his authority. The air around him thickened with humiliation woven from his own malice. Amina, from her quiet vantage, watched Layla with profound pride. The seeds of quiet revelation had at last blossomed. The stage that had hosted Khalid's condescension had irrevocably become an arena for change, a testament to the power of a single courageous voice to redefine a world. The space, now irrevocably altered by Layla's courage, seemed to hold its breath. At the gleaming transaction desk, where moments earlier judgment had reigned, Layla, her face a study in quiet determination, began the delicate task of processing the items. Her movements were precise, imbued with a newfound gravitas, each scan of a barcode a small act of defiance against the prejudice that had threatened to consume the atmosphere. The weight of the collective gaze, no longer fixed on Zayed's perceived shortcomings, now settled on the quiet dignity of Amina. With hands that bore the marks of a life tirelessly lived, hands that were now barely trembling, Amina produced her humble payment card. It was a simple piece of plastic, devoid of the flashy insignia of wealth, yet in that moment, it represented a boundless generosity that shamed the very opulence surrounding them. The sum, a formidable figure representing more than half her monthly earnings, flashed silently on the screen, a stark testament to the depth of her sacrifice. A soft, collective murmur, like the gentle rustle of desert winds, rippled through the assembled guests, a spontaneous utterance of admiration, of mashallah, acknowledging the profound human kindness on display. It was a sound that transcended social barriers, an echo of shared humanity that cut through the lingering scent of oud and the gleam of polished surfaces. As the transaction completed, a quiet chime confirming the approval, Amina's gaze met Zayed's. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a silent pact forged in the crucible of public scrutiny and profound empathy. Then, with a subtle shift in his bearing, a quiet straightening of his shoulders that spoke volumes of his true authority, Zayed turned his attention. His eyes, which had held the patient wisdom of a falcon observing from a great height, now fixed on Khalid. The manager, still reeling, slumped against a display of crystal, his tailored thobe now appearing like a costume on a diminished man. The air thickened once more, but this time with a different kind of tension, not of shame, but of an impending reckoning. Zayed's voice, when it came, was measured, devoid of anger, yet charged with an unyielding intensity that promised a redefinition of every value this grand majlis had supposedly upheld. He was no longer the humble man, but the visionary, preparing to articulate a truth that would reshape the very foundation of his empire, echoing the silent promise that true nobility resides not in the shimmer of inherited gold, nor the silken weave of one's garments, but in the unwavering compassion and integrity of one's spirit. The moment for mere observation had ended. The moment for profound change had arrived. Zayed's measured voice, with an authority that rose above the atrium's clamor, finally broke the silence. "Khalid," he began, calm yet resolute, "you have made a grave error in judgment, not merely in your assessment of me, but in your understanding of the very principles this establishment was founded upon." His steady gaze held Khalid's, stripping away the manager's bluster. The Majlis' opulence, usually a shield, now pressed in on Khalid, exposing his vulnerability. The faint scent of oud and jasmine, once background, now saturated the air. Zayed paused, letting Layla's revelation settle into every consciousness. The gold-plated tableware gleamed as a testament to the misplaced values Khalid had championed. For too long, Zayed continued, his voice gaining quiet power, this space has been seen as a sanctuary for the privileged, where worth is measured by gold and finery. But this is not the vision I hold, nor the legacy I intend to build. Astonishment rippled through the guests. Expressions shifted from curiosity to dawning comprehension. Amina, from her quiet corner, felt vindication bloom. She recognized her own silent battles in his words. Zayed's hand, calm and deliberate, gestured to her. This woman, Amina, whose selfless act you witnessed, represents the true heart of this enterprise. Her compassion and integrity are the true measures of wealth, the values that will define our future. Khalid, face a mask of defeat, tried to speak, but no words came. His tailored thobe, once imposing, hung limply, a shroud for his shattered authority. The polished marble floor that had echoed his self-importance now absorbed his humiliation. Zayed turned to the staff, inclusive and paternal. To all of you who bring our vision to life, every person who walks through these doors, regardless of attire or perceived status, deserves respect. This is not merely policy, it is the soul of our operations. Then, looking back at Khalid, his voice firm but not triumphant. Khalid, your actions show a fundamental misunderstanding of these principles. Your prejudice has no place here. Effective immediately, your services are no longer required. A collective gasp swept the Majlis, shock mixed with quiet agreement. The swiftness of Zayed's judgment, delivered with conviction, underscored his authority. The lantern's glow seemed to blaze with the intensity of this shift, illuminating a path toward a more equitable future. Zayed extended his hand, not to Khalid, but to Amina. Amina, your courage has lit what truly matters. Join me, not as a cleaner, but as a leader, as Director of Human Resources for my entire network. It is time for a new era, guided by empathy and integrity, where the human spirit is valued above all. Overwhelmed, Amina could only nod, tears welling, not of sadness, but of hope and gratitude. The Majlis, once a stage for prejudice, transformed into an oasis of justice, a testament to the power of one voice, one choice, to redefine a world. The desert blooms in the marble vases seemed to unfurl further, mirroring a new dawn. The future, shimmering like the distant city lights, awaited her steady hand, a promise of dignity for all who walked these halls. An empire's foundations were remade, not in gold, but in the unwavering strength of human kindness. The reverberations of this moment would echo far beyond these walls, forever changing the landscape of respect and belonging. The Majlis, reshaped by the revelation of inherent integrity, settled into a deep, resonant calm, infused with the promise of a dignified future for all. Amina moved with serene purpose through the formerly stifling spaces, embodying a quiet yet formidable power, her presence a testament to character's triumph over superficiality. Her abaya, no longer mere uniform, bore the weight of responsibility, symbolizing a new era of compassion and justice. The atrium's gleaming marble, once reflecting social divisions, now shimmered with equitable promise, each polished expanse mirroring a solemn vow of inclusive, respectful interaction. Desert blooms, freed from their vases, unfurled with vibrant freedom, their petals echoing the liberation in every spirit there. The bitter memory of Khalid's dismissal lingered faintly, a reminder of the vigilance required for lasting change, demanding daily cultivation of core values beyond rhetoric. Amina, with wisdom forged in adversity, knew this dawn was not a single climax, but an ongoing commitment to nurture human resilience and foster an environment where worth was inherent, not conferred. From his glass sky lounge, Zayed observed this blossoming with the satisfaction of a visionary seeing ideals become reality. The panorama of the Riyadh financial district beneath him now represented not only ambition, but a canvas where Amina painted a more humane future. proving their shared values of dignity and respect. He watched subtle shifts in the company's culture as Amina's influence spread through departments like a rare desert flower in bloom. Employees, once guarded by apprehension, now offered genuine smiles, their faces alight with infectious warmth. Layla, freed from Khalid's prejudice, embraced her role with fervor, her client interactions infused with authentic empathy. Old structures built on exclusion began to dissolve, slowly replaced by collaboration, mutual respect, and shared purpose. As Director of Human Resources, Amina crafted initiatives to empower every individual, regardless of status. Workshops on cultural sensitivity and inclusive communication became cornerstones of a new corporate philosophy, transforming tolerance into understanding and embedding an ethos that celebrated diversity. The company, once defined by wealth and exclusivity, now championed human dignity as its guiding value, a transformative departure felt by everyone from recruits to executives. The whispers of this revolution rippled beyond the Majlis, carried on the desert wind, touching many hearts. Competitors, initially skeptical, soon noticed fierce loyalty among Zayed's employees and rising client satisfaction. Prioritizing compassionate leadership over prejudice proved a thriving business model, defying conventional wisdom. Amina's children, freed from past hardships, walked with quiet confidence, their futures brightened by their mother's triumph, a testament to integrity and selfless kindness. The plaque inscribed to Amina, "And all who choose compassion over prejudice," evolved from words into a guiding philosophy, whispered with admiration by newcomers and veterans alike. The empire, once steeped in ruthless competition, now pulsed with collective purpose and a commitment to a legacy more enduring than gold. This was the true wealth forged in that moment, promising to extend its influence beyond Riyadh's skyline, redefining belonging, dignity, and respect, and setting a new standard for ethical enterprise and human flourishing. The empire's new heartbeat resonated not in grand proclamations, but in the quiet hum of genuine connection, a symphony woven from countless small acts of kindness. Amina's steady hand guided the intricate dance of human resources, transforming policies into pathways for individual growth and collective flourishing. The marble palace atrium, once a stage for veiled judgment, now vibrated with an open dialogue, where voices from every echelon mingled with ease, exchanging ideas and smiles that were unburdened by past hierarchies. The desert blooms, once symbols of Zara's gilded cage, now thrived in vibrant profusion throughout the polished halls, a living metaphor for the unconstrained potential being nurtured within the company. Each petal seemed to unfurl with newfound vigor, reflecting the blossoming confidence in every employee, from the newest recruit to the seasoned executive. This was more than a mere shift in corporate strategy. It was a profound cultural renaissance, proving that true prosperity stemmed not from the accumulation of material wealth, but from the rich soil of respect and authentic belonging. The subtle scent of oud, once a backdrop to silent anxieties, now mingled with the fresh aroma of possibility, creating an olfactory tapestry of hope. Zayed, observing from his glass sky lounge, often reflected on the profound transformation. The Riyadh financial district, sprawling beneath him, no longer appeared as a cold expanse of ambition, but as a vibrant ecosystem, its towering structures infused with the warmth of human dignity. He saw Layla, no longer defined by her past hesitancy, mentoring new associates with a fervent passion, her once trembling hands now confidently guiding others towards ethical engagement. Her laughter, free and uninhibited, echoed through the once stifling corridors, a joyful counterpoint to the hushed formality of previous days. The subtle ripple effect of Amina's leadership extended even to the city's broader social fabric, as other enterprises, witnessing Zayed's burgeoning success and the palpable morale of his workforce, began to tentatively explore similar shifts in their own corporate philosophies. The plaque honoring Amina at the atrium's entrance, once a novel inscription, had become a beloved landmark, a daily reminder that courage and compassion were not simply virtues, but powerful catalysts for enduring change. Its words, now etched into the very soul of the empire, transcended the polished marble, becoming an internal compass for every decision, every interaction, guiding the collective towards a horizon shimmering with shared purpose. This new era, born from a moment of public humiliation and a singular act of selflessness, had evolved into a living testament to the unwavering power of the human spirit. The once stratified social constructs, carefully maintained by generations of privilege, were slowly, but irrevocably, yielding to a more inclusive vision. Amina's children, once on the periphery, now thrived within the system. Their bright futures a testament to the fact that merit, not birthright, defined opportunity. Their vibrant energy, a constant reminder of the possibilities, infused the empire with a youthful optimism. The unwavering commitment to empathy, once a radical notion, had now become the bedrock of every decision, every innovative project, every expansion into new markets. It was a silent revolution, unfolding in plain sight, proving that an empire built on the dignity of its people was an empire built to last. The gleaming towers of the Riyadh skyline, illuminated by the setting sun, seemed to glow with a deeper, more meaningful light, reflecting not just the vastness of human ambition, but the profound beauty of a society choosing kindness as its ultimate currency. The desert wind, once carrying whispers of judgment, now carried the triumphant anthem of a world redefined, promising an enduring legacy far richer than any material treasure. The ripples of Zayed's profound declaration expanded steadily, transforming into a sweeping current that redefined the very soul of his empire in the months that followed. A palpable shift imbued the air, replacing the hushed anxieties of old with a vibrant hum of genuine connection and shared purpose. Amina, now a figure of serene authority, moved through the revitalized landscape, her bespoke haute couture abaya flowing around her like a living testament to the ethos she championed. The Marble Palace atrium, once a stage for veiled judgments, now resonated with an authentic warmth, its gleaming surfaces reflecting the radiant dignity she had instilled. Every corner of the vast establishment pulsed with a new culture of respect, a tangible legacy of her unwavering compassion. Zayed, from the tranquil height of his glass sky lounge, often gazed upon the Riyadh financial district sprawling beneath him, his heart swelling with immense satisfaction. The golden skyline at sunset, once a symbol of ambition's cold expanse, now mirrored the hopeful horizon of a humane enterprise. He watched as Layla, once hesitant and fearful, now engaged with customers with a heartfelt authenticity that was both inspiring and infectious, her empathetic approach blossoming beautifully. The positive ripple effects of Amina's leadership extended far beyond the polished halls, even touching the lives of her children, whose futures now gleamed with newfound opportunity and stability, nurtured by the seeds of justice sown that pivotal day. He knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within his spirit, that his choice to empower Amina had been undeniably right, a decision that transcended mere business acumen. One evening, as twilight painted the city in hues of rose and gold, Zayed led Amina to the grand entrance of the Marble Palace atrium. There, nestled amidst the pristine marble, a new plaque shimmered, its polished surface catching the last fading rays of the setting sun. To Amina, it read, its letters imbued with profound meaning, and all who choose compassion over prejudice. The inscription was a lasting symbol, a beacon of the values that now truly defined his empire, a quiet defiance against the fleeting allure of superficial wealth. The weight of those words settled upon Amina, a profound acknowledgement of her extraordinary journey, transforming her humble beginnings into an enduring legacy that would inspire generations. Later, high above the bustling city, within the hushed elegance of his glass sky lounge, bathed in the soft glow of distant city lights, Zayed extended a final, momentous offer. His eyes, holding the discerning wisdom of a falcon with a diamond ring, conveyed a depth of respect that transcended their differing stations, a recognition of her innate leadership. He spoke of extending her role, of overseeing the human spirit across his entire network, of becoming the director of human resources for every establishment under his vast dominion. Amina, her heart swelling with a quiet triumph and a profound sense of purpose, accepted without hesitation. Her acceptance sealed not just a new position, but a new era, proving unequivocally that true nobility resides not in the shimmer of inherited gold, nor the silken weave of one's garments, but in the unwavering compassion and integrity of one's spirit. The Marble Palace atrium and the glass sky lounge, once mere backdrops for ambition and power, now truly reflected the profound human values they were built upon, echoing with a promise of enduring dignity for all who walked their halls. The future, shimmering like the distant lights of the thriving city, awaited her steady, compassionate hand, poised to write new chapters of humanity and respect within the grand narrative of the empire.